Welcome to the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katolka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, the one, the only, Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
I'm schwitzing.
You're schwitzing? How are you schwitzing? Cold.
Chris, I'm schwitzing. Yes, it is cold outside. In fact, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. I had to go help my son out with his 2 kids. His wife is on a business trip, and he has to get out at 6. So I wasn't schwitzing going outside and driving to their house. I'm schwitzing because, Chris, we only have a few weeks to go for our goal of $10,000. I'm sweating bullets.
Oh, you're sweating bullets. Okay, so that's just if you're tuning in for the first time and you're listening, or maybe you listen to the Jew and Gentile podcast, Steve and I are on a mission right now. We are on a mission to raise $10,000. We've had amazing gifts come in. We've had a benefactor who kickstarted our $10,000 year-end goal to fund FOI Equip, which not only funds the Jew and Gentile podcast, but also funds our interns that are serving all around the United States and Canada. It funds our Bridges program that's training people to love the Jewish people. It funds our Equip classes. It funds our volunteer program with 100 volunteers serving around the world, ministering to Jewish people. There's so much that the $10,000 does to help advance our passion for God's word and compassion for God's chosen people. And we want you to be a part of that. So we're at the halfway mark. It's already December 10th. Would you help us? Steve, we've got about 20 days left. Can we raise $5,000 from our listeners in the next 20 days to help equip Christians to love the Jewish people?
Oh, you mean we're halfway there? Well, maybe I could sweat a little less.
No, you should still sweat. We've only got 20 days left, okay?
All right. I'm schwitzing. I'm telling you, I'd love to see us reach that goal. Really, Chris, the Jew and Gentile podcast is really just a very small percentage of taking resources from Equip. The other things that you mentioned are the major ones, and they involve people going out in ministry. And that's really what we're asking. We want to help people who are interested in going out and ministering to the Jewish people, being trained, and that's what this $10,000 will be used for.
Well, if you're sitting there and you're going, all right, fine, you've twisted my arm enough, I'll give to help support FOI Equip and the equipping ministries of the Friends of Israel, then do me a favor. Go to foiequip.org. And when you get there, up at the top, you'll see a donate button. You smack that donate button, and that will give you the opportunity to give online to FOI Equip to help not only keep the Jew and Gentile podcast running, but also to advance the ministries that we have, like Bridges, like our Tikva volunteers, like our FOI Equip classes. So please go to foiequip.org. Help change lives in Jewish communities all around the world. foiequip.org, and smack that donate button. Steve, what else is going on?
Chris, I got to tell you, maybe it would help if some of our listeners would begin AI people. AI people are making millions, according to the New York Post. They're making millions of dollars. They're not hiring Hollywood people. They're inventing them on the computer. And to be honest, quite good looking, I might add.
Steve, this does not bode well for the Jew and Gentile podcast.
Before you know it, we'll be replaced.
They don't even need us anymore. They're just going to replace us with AI. Steve, I have the article here. I'm going to share it. It's a New York Post
article. Look at her.
Article.
She's pretty cute. Don't you think she's cute?
I can't even believe that's not real. Tilly Norwood's realistic girl next door look sent shockwaves throughout the social media in Hollywood. And so it says, a quick trip to the bathroom changed Aline van der Velden's life in Hollywood forever. There, in the privacy of her porcelain escape, the artificial intelligence innovator was hit with a stroke of genius. Though it would ultimately irk the A-listers like Whoopi Goldberg, Emily Blunt, Natasha Lyonne, Ryan Reynolds, and top dogs at the Screen Actors Guild. I remember it clearly. In February 2025, I went to the bathroom, and then I came back to chat to the team, and I said,
great idea. Launch from the bathroom.
That's right. Make an AI actress. So again, There you go, Steve. Don't ever consider going to the bathroom as a waste of your time. That's where maybe some of the best ideas come from, I guess,
Well,
right?
you know, it's been jokes on TV sitcoms for years. Men, I don't know if you're noted for it, but men are noted. They used to take newspapers into the bathroom. In fact, over the years when I traveled with FOI and would stay in people's homes, I found Israel My Glory in the bathroom. I found newspapers in the Reader's Digest. So you got some time to kill. So they created AI from the bathroom.
Well, Steve, here's something I definitely feel. If we had somebody convinced to go to foiequip.org to donate to our ministry, they just decided not to. Okay, that's what just happened after they heard that discussion. But
what can I tell you?
That's right. So, Steve, we are moving our way through Psalms. If you're wondering why in the world does the audio sound a little different, why are Steve and Chris in different locations? They're not in the Friends of Israel Jew and Gentile podcast studio. Well, that is because I'm up at Word of Life Bible Institute and I am teaching right now probably more than 100 second-year students, sophomore students at the Word of Life Bible Institute. And Steve is home right now. And so we had to do this podcast from a distance. But Steve, I've had a great time with these students and teaching them about in between the testaments, the intertestamental period. It's second year class. It's a great time. And the students are really engaged. It's fantastic.
Well, that's interesting. You're there now in December teaching intertestamental period of time, because coming up as we video this on December 10th, in 4 days, Chris, it's Hanukkah.
That's right.
So maybe we'll talk a little bit about Hanukkah next podcast. But Hanukkah takes place in the intertestamental period, and it is a critical time. I'm sure that's not the only thing you're centering on, but certainly it's big as it relates to the Messiah, because if there was no Hanukkah, there would be no Jesus. That alone, you thank God for Hanukkah, because the seed that was promised, the Messiah, came. But if the Maccabees didn't arise, we'd be in big trouble, mister.
Well, today was the day I talked about Hanukkah. And, I developed this class so that it starts with the Persians, just as Malachi launches into the 400 years of silence. I start with the Persians and I end with the Romans. And so there's a lot of things that happen. But, Steve, when the Jewish people returned to the land under Ezra, Nehemiah, and Zerubbabel, there's a lot of reason for rejoicing when Cyrus the Great gave them that permission. But then at the same time, there's a lot of probably questions that arise, because the Jewish people, they might have been free to return to their land, but they still had to answer to a Gentile king. The person that ruled over them wasn't called a king, the king of the Jews or king of Israel. He was called a governor. And so there's a big difference between the title king and a title governor. A governor means you're still have to answer to somebody else. And the person the Jewish people were answering to under the Persian rule were Cyrus and the subsequent kings. And then they had to answer to the Greek kings under their rule. But it wasn't until Mattathias, that Greek the Jewish priest who stood up against that Greek king, Antiochus IV, he is the one who said, we will not live lives anymore assimilating into this Greek culture, forcing us to abandon our Jewishness. We're going to push back against it. And so many events took place, but it created, for just a brief moment of time, Steve, it created the taste of Jewish sovereignty in the land, Jewish freedom. And Steve, I think it's so interesting that John takes a moment to highlight that Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. And it was
absolutely.
It was a memory that I know he had, just like we have memories of the Revolutionary War and the fighting, that America established itself, the Declaration of Independence. We have these memories that we celebrate and we remember. I am sure Jesus was tapping into the memories of the Jewish people who remembered that brief moment of autonomy and sovereignty of the Jewish people before it was snuffed out by the Romans again. that he would tap into that and say, I am the good shepherd. And that's when they say, well, tell us plainly, are you the Messiah or not? Which means he is the king of Israel, not the governor of Israel. He's the king of Israel. And he's telling that on Hanukkah, a time when the Jewish people are remembering freedom, they're remembering sovereignty. And so really a lot of amazing things that peel out from that. And we talked about that today in class.
I wish I was in your class. That would have been good.
It was a lot of fun. But we're not in Hanukkah
John,
right now. We're in Psalm 119.
That's right. And we're in Shin. So we've done Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzad, Tzadik, Kuf, Resh. And now we're on Shin. And so, Chris, at least for me, as I read this section, which starts in verse 161 and goes to 168, I noted 7. 7 is going to be a big number, Chris. It's a big number for your wife. It's a big number for you, even on this podcast. And I've heard you at conferences say, free, 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 7 times, because you noted, I didn't know it, but I've learned it from you, that 7 times you have to say something in order for people to remember it. So there are 7 verbs here that I noted. Really, I just found out before the podcast, as I recounted them, they're really 6, but 1 is used twice. So I'm counting them as 7. It wrecked me completely up, but I'm keeping to the theme anyway. It's 7 verbs that we will read. 1 is used twice, and we'll talk about that particular verb, and it is used twice, and it's a significant verb. So why don't you read, and mine's from the New King James Version. I didn't read it from the ESV. So you read it from the ESV, and I'll go over and highlight those 7 verbs.
All right, here we go. This is starting in verse 161 of Psalm 119. Rulers persecute me without cause, but my heart trembles at your word. I rejoice in your promise like one who finds great spoil. I hate and detest falsehood, but I love your law. 7 times a day I praise you for your righteous laws. Great peace have those who love your law, and nothing can make them stumble. I wait for your salvation, Lord, and I follow your commands. I obey your statutes, for I love them greatly. I obey your precepts and your statutes, for all my ways are known to you.
Okay, just a few differences I noted in the ESV versus the New King James, but these 7 verbs, Chris, the psalmist wrote a long time ago, and these are verbs that you and I could do as they again relate to the word, which is what Psalm 119 is speaking about. I'm going to list them, and then we'll go through them a little slower and talk about the differences in the ESV and the New King James. Does that sound fair?
That's fine. And just to let you know, this is the NIV, not the ESV.
Oh, NIV. I thought you were reading from the ESV. So I didn't pay attention because I was reading from the New King James. So na. All right. So the psalmist says, I rejoice. So that verb rejoice, very important, rejoicing. And what's he rejoicing at? At his word. He hates, another verb, he hates lying. He loves, and that's the word that's going to be used twice. I thought that's significant. Love, in this case, he loves the law. And in verse 168, he's going to love your testimonies. So the law and testimonies, the doctrine as well as the practical side of folks. So I love your law. I praise you. That's God. I hope. There's one difference between the NIV and the New King James, but I hope it's your salvation. I do your commandments, love your testimonies, and keep, I think the NIV is follow your precepts. So there's a few differences, but the main thing are these verbs, Chris. I honestly, as I noticed this in this section, I confess that when I think of Psalm 119, I don't normally think of what I need to do. I just think of it, oh, this has to do with the Bible, and I know I need to read it. I know I need to meditate on it. But the psalmist is doing much more than reading and meditating.
Yeah, he's acting in accordance with the law.
He's engaged. He
That's
seems
right.
engaged.
Yeah, I think he's acting because the two words that pop up in verse 167 and 168 for me, the verbs, is obey, and obeying is acting in accordance with the laws of what God is what he's sharing and what he's doing. So I like what direction you're going here. You're sharing the idea that it's more than mere words. It's actually putting into practice what is God's law is commanded him to do. And for that reason he praises God, because that's the whole I think that's the whole point. Earlier on, Psalm 119 talks about a light unto my your word, your law is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That means you have to walk this path, which means that you have to do these things. You have to work them out. Steve, can I ask you, I don't know how much we've talked on this, but I'd be interested your thoughts on, I think a lot of times when we think as Christians about the law, we immediately go to legalism. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yep.
like when you're just even saying this, well, there's a point in which the psalmist is engaged with the law or obeying the law. But sometimes I think we immediately, whenever it comes to the law, we immediately just almost like it's been drilled in us as Christians that this is a form of legalism in some way.
Well,
Is that the right way to look at it?
no, I don't think so. Although I understand what, hey, Jewish people do that. When immediately they hear Torah or they hear the law, I've talked to Jewish people, you have too, who said, well, I don't follow them, but I identify, I align with, I like the structure of the people and the Torah and for what it means in general. Let me give you a practical example, Chris, because it happened recently. As we think about rejoicing and praising and obeying, those kinds of things, how do we engage with the word when an event happens? And so I'm going to share, Alice's brother just went to be with the Lord. It was a weekend kind of crazy. We got word on Saturday that he was very sick. He had a brain bleed, had to go up to the hospital. And I got a text from his daughter at 3:30. Come up now. It's a 3-hour drive to Connecticut. Come up now. He's requesting his sisters. That's my wife and my sister-in-law. Well, I saw a text back now. Does now mean this minute I got to leave, or does it mean tomorrow? I didn't know what now meant. And so she texted back now. So within 35 minutes, we called Alice's sister, and we were in the car at 4:15 on our way to Connecticut. Why? Well, we were because he requested it. He's now in hospice. By the 3 hours later, we got there. What was the whole thing? Of course, it's family. You can make the argument any family would do that, and it's true. But there are biblical principles that come from the Word of God that are important as you make decisions in life. And this was a decision that surrounded not just the strong ties of family, but the strong ties of the Word of God in the person who's the physical Word of God, who is seated at the right hand of God the Father. So we get up there, we see him, he's in terrible shape. There's weeping, of course, holding hand. He's unconscious, but he can hear us. I know he can. That's medical people tell us that. My whole point is, we love God, we love his word, we make our decisions based on lots of factors, and certainly Jesus Christ, our relationship with him, really factored into all that we do here. And so on the way back home, we spent 2 hours with him isn't, as I said, it wasn't good at all. His wife's there, my sister-in-law, his daughter is there. We're talking. I had prayer. I led us in prayer. And we're driving home, Chris, and I said to my wife, he wanted his two sisters. Right before he went in his coma, he said to his wife, I see my sister, the one that's in heaven. One of his sisters is in heaven. Look, I'm not a weird spiritualist kind of person. I don't know that place where a person is unconscious. They're here on the earth. There's all kinds of stories, but I only know what I heard. And his wife said he sees his sister and he's glad he saw her and he wants to see his other two sisters. So we're driving home. And Chris, I said to my wife, look, I could be completely wrong. He wanted to see you two, and now he's going to go home. So we drive home, and we left the hospital at 9 o'clock, and we found out at 12:15 a.m. he went home to be with the Lord. Wow. I'm telling you, yes, 80% is just the strong family connection. But there's a large percentage that's governed by the law, Chris, the biblical law. As to where God is in our relationship and what is my responsibility and what am I going to do when a decision has to come quickly. It's certainly based on lots of things. But for me, Chris, the underlying, am I going to go? We're going to go as fast as we can. There is a relationship. God is important. And we believe that these are all spiritual things. And Chris, you could probably make up a lot of different decisions that are made that are filtered through God's law, his word, and our love for his word and testimony. So now they asked me to do the service. I'll be doing the graveside service on Friday. And believe me, the events that took place when I was up there in the hospital with his sisters and wife is going to be a part of the very ministry I have with unsaved people who are going to be there by the graveside. And so it's so important following God, the relationship we have with him, the word, which is the living word, which lives in us. I don't know if I'm making sense, but these commands, these things we have to engage with the word. To me, the word is not just words written on paper. It's a person, and we have a relationship with that person, and that person in the relationship guides us in mundane things of life, in terrorizing things of life, in wonderful things of life, in every kind of life. So anyway, that's my spiel.
No, I come back to that idea that I was talking about earlier, that I think that at times a lot of Christians, they look at the law, and I've heard this before, Steve, and maybe you can chime in on this, but I've heard it before where Christians say, oh, I could never keep all, I'm so glad I don't have to keep all those laws. And I don't know if you've heard that before from the old time.
Many times.
I'm so glad. And quite honestly, I think that we're again throwing out the law because we think, oh, I could never keep all them. When in reality, Steve, I just asked ChatGPT. I said, how many laws are there surrounding driving? Because driving is something that we do on a day. You drive, I drive. There's millions of drivers that are driving all the time. Now, so it says, well, there's laws for each state, but it boiled down kind of like bullet points, almost like the 10 Commandments, like bullet points of driving. And then there's laws under those bullet points. So think about it. When you drive your car, so when Christians say, I can never follow this, I'm so glad I don't have to keep all those things. Just in one aspect of your life, driving, you have to follow licensing laws, vehicle registration laws, insurance requirement laws, speed limit laws, DUI laws, rules of the road, lane use laws, pedestrian and cyclist laws, parking rules, safety equipment, seatbelts, child seats, helmets, commercial driving laws, and then the penalties and point systems that I guess that's the result of whether or not you keep the laws. But they're saying with all of those things, in California, there's over 1,000 related statutes for one aspect of your life, driving. For Texas, there are several hundred, it says. For Florida, there's 300 plus laws for driving. In New York, there's anywhere from 400 to 500. So the answer is there could be anywhere, depending on what state you live in, there could be anywhere from 300 to 1,000 laws for one thing that you do in your life, which is driving. And it's funny because, Steve, you know this. When the psalmist is writing in Psalm 119, the psalmist is thinking about the Torah, the law of God. And how many laws are there? There's 613. 613. And that governs, think about that. That governs every aspect of your life, not just driving, every aspect. How you worship the God of the universe, how you relate with the people around you and respect them and love your neighbor as yourself. All of those things are boiled down to 613 laws. And so sometimes, when I hear somebody go, I could never keep them, I think, well, do you get in the car and drive around? And I'm sure you do the best you can to maintain those laws, but you do them, or else it's total chaos if you don't. So I just always think, we oftentimes overshadow the law with this, I'm so glad I don't have to do that. When in reality, the law drives us. Imagine if, I don't want a relationship with the DMV, Steve. I don't want to go to the DMV. I don't want that relationship, but I want a relationship with the God of the universe. I want a relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through Jesus, the Messiah. And you know what he does? He makes me want to follow his word and to allow the Holy Spirit to work in me so that I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I am. I'm not saying I've kept the law 100%. Only Jesus has done that. But the reality is that also it's not something negative. It's something positive, especially when you hear here from the psalmist once again that he praises God 7 times a day for his righteous, he calls them his righteous laws.
He remembers them. And look at the things. He rejoices at his word. He hates lying. Chris, how many times in a day are you hearing people who are not telling you the truth? We don't know that number, but it happens if you watch any kind of video, there's advertisements. I'm telling you, they're schmying you. They are not telling you the whole truth. If you went to look for a car, I'm telling you, how many times do you hear lies? And he's saying, I hate lying. I hate it. But I love your law. I praise you. I'm hoping in your salvation. I obey or do your commandments. And then I love your testimonies and keep your precepts. And when we do those things, engage with the word, Chris, we change the people around us. We change the people around us. Just one of the things we're supposed to have is a cheerful spirit. That's one of the biblical things, the fruits of the Spirit. We're to have a demeanor where we're more than conquerors. So life, as bad as it could get, we're not supposed to be crabby. And if we obey that, it changes the people around us. And there's opportunity for ministry. And that's really it's spiritual, but it's also this spirit being worked out in science as well, because they actually say like a positive person with a positive attitude can radically change an environment around them from one of negativity to one of positivity. It's true. It's absolutely true. Which is the Apostle Paul had a stress within him in Romans 7. That which I do, I shouldn't do. That which I shouldn't do, I do. Oh, wicked man that I am. Well, for me, I'm partly upbeat. I try to be upbeat, but at the same time, because of my DNA, every positive thing, I automatically think that ain't going to happen to me. So I always have this tension, not just the biblical tension that Paul talked about, but the cultural one as well. I want to wake up, oh yeah, I'm alive today. But just wait a few minutes. Something will happen.
Is anything okay?
That's right. Okay? That is the tension.
Well, Steve, we only have one more left. We have made it through almost through Psalm 119, and we will pick up on that next week. But Steve, can you say those verbs one more time? The 7 verbs.
I will. Once, twice. Remember that. So I rejoice in verse 162. I hate 163. I love 163. I praise 164. I hope 166. I do 166. I love 168. And I keep verse 168. We can include those. You could put that in the show notes, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I'll do that. I'll definitely do that.
Okay. There might not be a big demand for them the way we handle them, but...
I'm expecting a ton of texts at 424.
444.
1940. I'm expecting a bunch of texts for those verbs, Steve. So, again, you can text us at 424.
444.
1948. And we'll actually have some more goodies to give away to you at that text line in a moment.
Hey, Chris, I got to give you an update on those goodies. My wife is the one. I watch her. She has spent roughly, she doesn't keep time, in my head roughly, about 25 hours and has done 400 packets over the last maybe couple weeks. We had to get a whole new shipment of stickers and envelopes and all that. She loves doing it. She is thrilled to do it. And so you need to tell people about the stickers, why she's doing this, what is a sticker, and we need to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll do that toward the end, but I do want to say, when you do get your stickers from the Friends of Israel, they have been hand-packed with love by Alice Herzig, probably right at the table that Steve is sitting at right
100%. 100%. Yep.
Well, Steve, I want to go to the news, and you found some great news here, and one of them is coming from the New York Post, which talks about an F grade that's handed to 14 colleges, an anti-Semitism report card as Jewish students forced to hide their identities. It says a whopping 39% of Jewish college students have had to hide their identities on campus, while 62% said they have been directly blamed for Israel's military action, according to a new report obtained by the Post.
Well, Chris, contained in that article that you just quoted was an ADL survey, which talks about college faculty witnessing anti-Semitism on the campus. This isn't really any new news that you've gotten from Jew and Gentile podcast. We've been talking about this anti-Semitic slur that has just gone on at many college campuses. But Chris, I already talked about doing the funeral for my brother-in-law. He married a Jewish believer, a wonderful Jewish believer. And I didn't know, I had to ask his wife, Faith, her name's Faith, and I had to ask her about meeting him. How did they meet? Well, she was a waitress at a diner that he went to, and he went to it all the time and ordered the same thing. That whole Wegner family. Once they find something they like, that's it. They don't try anything else. That's what they do. So he was there, and they met. She asked him what he was. What religion are you? And he identified as a Christian. And she found that interesting because he didn't say he was a Baptist. He didn't say he was a Methodist, a Protestant, a Catholic. He said, I'm a Christian. And then he quoted a verse, which I don't know what it is, but he quoted a verse from the Gospel of John. But the reason they connected was because her fellow employees slurred her on a continual basis because she's Jewish. So her co-workers were anti-Semitic and demonstrated so while he was there, and he defended her. He stood up and talked about the Jewish people and, who they are and how important they are. And he stood up and they connected and were, at the end of this month in December, would have been married 50 years.
Wow.
But the point of the whole thing is that there was an anti-Semitism, at least in that diner in Connecticut back in 1975, when they met. So anti-Semitism is not just the Holocaust. Anti-Semitism is not just in the Dark Ages. Anti-Semitism is not just now on college campuses, Chris. It raises its ugly head everywhere, under all different age groups and situations. And this is just another example of when God chooses something, Satan hates it. He hates it. And he will fight it any time period, any geography, any age group. He will continue to attack God's chosen people.
I think this also highlights that, again, this argument that there are people that said, oh, I can hate Israel, but not be anti-Semitic. It's called anti-Zionism. That's to hate Israel. And the question is, can you be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic? Number one, I think this article shows, once again, here's a college kid, Steve. His Jewish mom is probably so excited he's going to Columbia University or NYU, and all he's doing, he might have never even stepped foot in the land of Israel. He could be secular for all I know, but here he is. He's just going to college, a Jewish kid, and he gets attacked. That's the whole point of this. He gets attacked for something that's happening halfway around the world. That means somebody who hates what's going on in Israel attacks a Jew in New York City. That's called anti-Semitism, and it's connected to anti-Zionism. So when people go, oh, there's no connection between it, I'm so sorry. There is a connection. You can't sit there. Anti-Zionism, Steve, means I hate Israel. I hate Israel. That's what it means. I hate it. But I can't,
Chris,
hate Israel and then say, oh, but I like the Jews, but I hate Israel so much. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. But, I think it'd be great if you review the three components of anti-Semitism. You know them really well. You picked it up from watching Hugh Hewitt in an interview that he did. If you don't remember them, I do, but I would rather you do it. The three elements, I'll do the first one, religious anti-Semitism, which goes back a long time. And there's less religious anti-Semitism today, and there's more of the other two. Why don't you share those other two?
The other one is racial anti-Semitism, which is how Hitler was able to target Jewish people, whether they were believing Jewish people and they're practicing, I should say, Jewish people or secular Jewish people or even Jewish people that believed in Jesus. It didn't matter what you were. If your DNA was Jewish, he targeted you. And in today's anti-Semitism since 1948, that we're seeing more and more is called, I've been labeling it as statehood anti-Semitism.
Land. It's land, the land of Israel.
It's land. And so because there's a land of Israel and there's Jewish people in the land, guess what? All Jewish people around the world get persecuted for what's going on there, even though they might not have ever even stepped foot in the land of Israel to begin with, or let alone have citizenship. So
I think it's very important that our people be reminded of that, because not a lot of people are breaking it down. Anti-Semitism, it falls under that umbrella, but it shows itself in lots of different ways. That's why, you see in France, the government tells the Jewish people there, we can't help you. If you're wearing a yarmulke, men, or if you have a mezuzah on your house, we can't guarantee that you won't be attacked or that your house won't be, egged or whatever. We can't do that. So keep it down. Keep it covered. Well, it won't matter because the next thing they'll do on airplanes, it's already happened where terrorists come. They look for the last name of a person. They're not looking for yarmulkes. They're looking for their last name. Yeah. And in the raid on Entebbe all those years ago, they separated the Jews from the Gentiles. They didn't have stars to identify. They only had names. Yeah. And so they went through the names and the Gentiles got to go free and all the ones with Jewish names were held hostage. And then you have the land of Israel. Well, if a Jew is living in America, they're going to Colombia. They're not Israeli. They don't live in Israel. Why are you picking on them? Because you're Jewish and there is an Israel of Jewish people. That's why I think those three categories are so important.
Well, Steve, in light of that land category and even the tension that was being felt with anti-Semitism, I want to highlight probably our last news article for right now, because we have to close up here pretty soon. But it comes from the Jerusalem Post, and it's actually a big archaeological find. A Hasmonean-era first wall section revealed at the Tower of David Museum. And there's an interview that took place with Israel's heritage minister, Rabbi Amichai Eliyahu. And it just to give you
say that 3 times fast.
It took me a moment. I had to get my head wrapped around it for a moment. But the Hasmonean, just so that you know, the Hasmonean era is the time period where Hanukkah comes from. We talked about that earlier. The Hasmonean dynasty, it's believed that Hasmon was a family member of Mattathias, the elderly Jewish priest from Modin, who stood up against the entire Greek Empire and said he had a zeal for God's law and he would not pay any allegiance to a Gentile king, and ended up his military that he had that was formed, the small one, ended up pushing back an entire Greek empire and building what was called a dynasty that would come from his family line called the Hasmonean era. And in Jerusalem, they found a section of a massive wall, the most massive wall ever built in Jerusalem, known as the First Wall. It was uncovered late last week, revealed to the press on Monday at the Tower of David Museum. Now, Steve, I have to say, the guy in the picture, archaeologists Amit Raim and Elliot Lieber, this guy, I watched a video of him, and we were talking earlier about AI. I actually thought it was AI the way he was talking, but it was really him. So
there's a great picture of them. You'll include it in the show notes when you give their address. But this is really significant, Chris. We're just talking about land anti-Semitism. The argument that goes back and forth between the Arabs and the Jews is whose land is it? Here we are, Hasmonean. It goes back way further, but there by the Tower of David is an intertestamental wall that took place in a real-time historical event, and it's interesting to me that we still argue about it.
Well, and Steve, I think I have to double-check this, but what's also interesting is that there's a lot of debate right now on exactly where Jesus was tried by Pilate, and the typical location is an area on the northwest side of the temple called the Antonio Fortress. Thank you. I was thinking Antiochus. I had Antiochus on the mind. Antonio Fortress. But more scholars are starting to look at an area near the Tower of David, right where this wall was found as well, because that's where Herod's palace would have been. The palace would not have been over in near off the temple. That would have been a garrison of troops, Roman troops. But this would have been where the prefect of Pontius Pilate would have been in Herod's old castle. So there's debate. It's very interesting, and this is found right in that area.
All right, Chris. We're moving to the Yiddish word of the day.
Yiddish word of the day, everybody. The Yiddish word of the day is connected to 7 for Steve's 7 verbs, and more like 6 to 7 verbs, which we like.
It's 6 with 1 added twice for emphasis. It comes to 7. 7 is a great biblical number. It's great for Karen Katulka, your wife. It's great for you when you're emceeing at a conference and saying, I want to remind you about this 7 times. Well,
free.
That's right. Zibn.
Zibn
is 7. Z-I-B-N.
Zibn.
Or Zibn. Zibn. Whatever you want.
All right.
That's
number. So God created the earth in 6 days and rested on Zibn. Is that right?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Zibn, everybody, is the Yiddish word of the day. Hey, thank you so much for being a part of the Friends of Israel's Jew and Gentile podcast. I promised you that especially if you're a first-time listener, we want to thank you for being and listening and coming all the way to the end with us here. We've got a gift for you.
How many of the 7 made it, Chris?
I'm anxious to know. We'll find out if we get a text message. And you know what you can do is text us at 424-444-1948, and we'll send you 50 free stickers that support Israel and the Jewish, hand-packed by Alice Herzig right at the table that Steve is sitting at right now. We have sent out more than 70,000 stickers around the world with Christians showing love and support to Israel and the Jewish people. Again, you can get those stickers by texting us at 424-444-1948. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next week.